host of the Gridiron.
How about that Sam Darnold, huh? Yeah, we're going to be paying big bucks for this guy in the offseason. Tell you what, he cost himself some money, didn't he? Tell you what, Rams made him look silly. Now it's kind of interesting because if I remember correctly, I could be wrong, but the Vikings lost 4 games. They lost back-to-back games in the season, right? And then they lost back-to-back games at the end of the season. Now, of course, they lost their back-to-back games in the season. They lost to the Lions, and then they lost to the Rams. And then to end the season, they lost their last game of the season to the Lions, and then they lost their last game of the season to the Rams. So, but I tell you what, the last they scored, I don't remember how many drives they actually had in both those games, but with maybe we should fire the play caller. Yeah. Well, we're going to be interested to see who's calling plays next year, too. Is that going to be Dable or going to be somebody else? But with Darnold, I don't know how many. They had a stat going. I can't remember how many it was. Finally it ended. Finally, they scored a touchdown, but they kicked, what the heck was it? I think they kicked, 3 field goals against the Lions, I believe it was. And then they scored 1 touchdown against Rams. So, I mean, Darnold cost himself. I'll tell you, if Darnold could just take those last 2 games and just let him go, and nobody ever actually saw him. You know, he if he hit the market, he would. I don't know what he would have made, but it would. It certainly went down after these last 2 games between the Lions and the Rams, and the Lions' defense is beat up, to say the least. And the Rams, that ain't the fearsome foursome out there, I'll tell you what. Now, of course, their offensive line wasn't doing them too much good help either, but he held on to the ball an awful lot. Boy, long. I mean, so Sam Darnold's brutal playoff flop just wrecked Giants quarterback plans. This is Vikings playoff run is over, and with it, any hope that Sam Darnold might have salvaged his reputation as a viable long-term NFL signal caller. The Vikings got obliterated by the Rams 27-9. The Giants fans have every reason to feel nervous about their own quarterback future. Darnold's implosion has ripple effects, and none of them are good for New York. Darnold was sacked a playoff record 9 times. Wow. Turned the ball over twice, including a fumble that rookie Jared Verse returned for the touchdown. Meanwhile, the Rams' Matthew Stafford sliced through the Vikings' defense like it wasn't even there. He literally turned into Daniel Jones. It was a disaster for Minnesota, but an even bigger gut punch for the Giants. Why? Because the Vikings have their backup plan ready and waiting. J.J. McCarthy, the same quarterback the Giants passed on in the 2024 NFL Draft. Sam Darnold became the 25th quarterback in NFL history to throw a pick, a fumble, and get sacked at least 9 times in one game. Wow. Damn. Who comes up with these stats? He is the first to do it since Daniel Jones in 2023 and joins Warren Moon as the only quarterbacks to do it in the playoffs. Teams are just 1 in 24 when their quarterback does this. When a quarterback throws a pick, fumbles a ball, and gets sacked at least 9 times, the teams are 1 in 20. That doesn't say who the only team was that won that. I have no idea why people look for these stats and all of that, but the teams they're 1 in 24 when that happens. The Vikings traded up for McCarthy in last year's draft, and now it looks like they're going to hand him the keys. Darnold's performance will all but sealed that fate. And for the Giants who are still wandering the quarterback wilderness, watching McCarthy potentially ascend in Minnesota is the ultimate insult, the ultimate kick in the cojones. Sam Darnold's collapse comes at the worst time for the Giants. Let's be clear. J.J. McCarthy remains an unknown. He hasn't taken an NFL snap, and crowning him as Minnesota's savior would be premature at best. But with Sam Darnold's playoff flop, McCarthy at least offers Vikings fans a sliver of hope for the future. The Giants, they don't even have that. No sliver of hope. They passed on drafting a quarterback last year, opting for Malik Neighbors. I'll take Neighbors to bolster the receiving group. Neighbors has been a bright spot, but the decision leaves the Giants staring into the abyss of another uncertain offseason at the most important position. The 2025 draft holds little promise, with two quarterback desperate teams ahead of the Giants. The Giants are drafted number 3. Possibly those two teams might scoop up Sanders and Ward. Possibly. That leaves Big Blue scrambling yet again, likely piecing together a stopgap solution of free agency or swinging for a trade that could set the franchise back years if it misses. Watching the Vikings implode with Darnold under center should serve as a stark reminder for the Giants. The clock is ticking. Every season spent without a definitive answer at quarterback is yet another year wasted. Whether it's exploring every trade possibility, rolling the dice on a second-tier draft prospect, or finding a way to move up in the draft, New York can't afford to enter 2025 without a plan. The Darnold debacle proves that banking on reclamation projects or patchwork solutions isn't the answer. The quarterback circus is here, and the chaos is just getting started. Well, I mean, the one good thing, is that it did show that, right? Now I know why they signed DJ. They have a type. Right. So at least for one thing is, I guess hopefully it took Darnold out of the picture, or if they bring Darnold in, maybe they offer him like a bag of Doritos for the season or something like that. But he did not look good in those last 2 games. That is absolutely sure. I know that. Sam Darnold played his way out of the Giants' potential plans. I certainly hope so. There's no question the Giants' top priority this offseason is to find themselves a starting quarterback. Co-owner John Mara, General Manager Joe Shane, and head coach Brian Daboll all cited the need for a quarterback in their exit interviews with the media after the season. Giants hold the number 3 pick in the draft, but that won't guarantee them much, as the top 2 quarterbacks, Sanders and Ward, could be off the board by the time they're on the clock. Well, to me, I would love for the Giants to beef up their defensive line. Absolutely love it. They currently have 0 players under contract at the quarterback position heading into next season, and need to get busy finding some viable options there. Now, they do hold like the exclusive rights free agent to Tommy Chicken Cutlet Parmesan. So if they offer him a contract, he's got to accept it. He can't go elsewhere. So, but I mean, Shane mentioned retaining exclusive rights free agent Tommy Chicken Cutlet Parmesan and exploring the trade free agent market for a young veteran to bridge the gap until they find their long-term answer. They could seek to retain Drew Lock and or Tim Boyle, who are both impending free agents, but they are backup material at best. The market is thin no matter where they turn. They can opt to trade for Kirk Cousins, but that could prove to be too costly. Absolutely. Free agent options are not great. You got Darnold, Fields, Dandy Dalton, right? Jimmy G. Garoppolo, Joe Flacco, Carson Wentz. There you go. Jameis Winston. Now, he could throw you into a game. He can also throw you out of a game. He'll throw you 5 touchdowns. He'll throw you 5 interceptions. So one thing with Winston, he's going to give you some excitement. I mean, Winston will be whatever, 15 out of 35, 5 interceptions, or he'll be 20 out of 25 with 5 touchdowns. But Cooper Rush, Mason Rudolph, Marcus Mariota, Jacoby Brissett, and Joshua Dobbs. Wow. There is also Russell Wilson, but he will likely re-sign with the Steelers. We'll have to see about that. The really hot name up until the past 2 weeks was Darnold, and the Giants had to be taking notice. Still only 27. Darnold had a monster season directing the Minnesota to a 14-3 record. He looked like the 3rd overall pick was predicted to look back in 2018 when the Jets drafted him. But Darnold's stock has taken a huge hit the past 2 weeks after back-to-back clunkers in games the Vikings needed to win. In Week 18 against the Lions, Darnold folded up like the Darnold of old, completing just 18 of 41 passes, no touchdowns, going 0 for 4 in the red zone in a deflating 31-9 loss. And I said, and that Lions defense is decimated. I mean, I can't remember all the guys. I mean, obviously Hutchinson, but I mean, they got a ton of guys that missing on that defensive side of the ball, and they kept them out of the end zone. I mean, he's got some good guys that throw the ball to, but couldn't get him in the end zone. Darnold followed that up in the wild card game against the Rams on Monday night. He led the Vikings to another one-sided loss, getting dominated and subsequently eliminated by a score of 27-9. And I'll tell you what, there were some passes, man, he threw. Holy cow. I mean, they were horrible, absolutely horrible. There was a short window in which some insiders thought that Darnold would be retained by the Vikings, but that window may now be shut. They plan to move ahead with this year's top pick, J.J. McCarthy, and potentially Daniel Jones as his backup appears possibly to be in place. It'll be interesting to see what they offer Daniel Jones. Darnold is still going to garner a lot of interest, and the Giants still could be one of the teams vying for his services. But they have to ask themselves, do you want a guy who crumbled under pressure and may be the odd man out in favor of Jones? No matter what, the Giants could be in for more uncertainty under center this season. Yeah, wow, I'll tell you what, man, I don't know why they signed DJ. They have it, man. He did not look good at all. It's going to be, every year is always a story, especially with the Giants, right? Like, of course, last year, it wasn't like 2 years ago, or whatever it was. The Daniel Jones, I think, kind of Saquon saw last year. We're going to get Saquon, we're going to bring him in, we'll bring him back. Well, of course, we lost him. Now, this year, it's going to be, who's the quarterback? And every year, there's, it's like General Hospital here. He wouldn't be the madman out in favor of Jones. Jones would just be the cheap. Oh, yeah. Well, I'm interested to see what Jones is going to wind up going to get paid. Going to be interesting to see what he winds up doing. Like if they elevate McCarthy to be number one and they bring, Jones as his backup, it'll be interesting to see how much Jones winds up getting paid. Then, of course, if Darnold winds up hitting the market and everything, it'll be interesting to see, who takes him and how much he gets too. But I'll tell you what, the Giants they have a lot of, it's like every year it's like a soap opera, the Giants. As the quarterback turns.